This year in Monaco, it's particularly hard to pinpoint a favorite for the important qualifying session and the key battle for taking pole position. Slow corners are the dominant feature of the Monegasque track, where Red Bull has seemed to make a difference since the start of the 2024 Formula One year, and where McLaren has improved with the recent updates introduced in the Miami Grand Prix weekend. It's a different story for Scuderia Ferrari, which has continued to struggle with low-speed corners since the beginning of the season, losing that agility in slow corners that was the strength of the 2023 Formula One project. Yet, according to some simulations, the SF-24 is credited as the fastest car in the Principality, a prediction that is reflected in the confidence shown by its representatives. Ferrari is aware that it doesn't have competitiveness in slow corners on its side, but the many nuances in preparing for the Monaco race keep the team in the game. Carlos Sainz's statements during the Thursday press conference are interesting. The Spaniard emphasizes how the SF-24 indeed struggles in low-speed corners, but at the same time, in Monaco, mechanical grip offered by the suspension is crucial. Slow corners on permanent racetracks, typically taken between 100 and 120 kilometers per hour, where aerodynamics continue to have a tangible effect, differ from the 50 kilometers per hour hairpins of the Principality, where the quality of the mechanics fully emerges. Furthermore, the SF-24 single-seater shows a good aeromechanical compromise on street circuits. It limits load losses at higher ground clearances forced by bumps and curbs of city tracks, while simultaneously stabilizing the vertical oscillations of the floor without overly stiffening the suspension, thus ensuring a good level of aerodynamic load. In Monte Carlo, moreover, all corners fall within a restricted speed range compared to usual, facilitating the search for balance compared to other tracks, where slow corners are often sacrificed to enhance competitiveness in fast corners. All teams are in search of downforce, so another anomaly of the race in the Principality is the level of aerodynamic load imposed on the cars, among the highest of the entire Formula One season. Red Bull won the 2023 edition, but the world champion's car did not stand out for maximum aerodynamic load, a choice also maintained for its successor. In the development of the RB20 car in Milton Keynes, they continue to avoid chasing record-breaking aerodynamic load peaks, preferring a broader operational window with which to reduce lap times. A philosophy that, while normally rewarding, risks backfiring in Monaco. In contrast, Ferrari has shown excellent levels of aerodynamic load, sometimes at the cost of not having as exceptional straight-line speed as was the case in the 2023 Formula One Championship. It should also be considered how changing the aerodynamic configuration does not leave the performance of the single-seater unchanged, with the possibility of gaining or losing competitiveness compared to rivals. Much will also depend on the effectiveness of the new rear wings, debuting on all cars for the race in the Principality. The example used by Fernando Alonso to explain the atypical nature of the event on the French Riviera is emblematic. In the past, I have come here with very competitive cars that proved not to be fast here and vice versa. A statement that summarizes the importance of preparation and tuning for the Monaco race. It is no coincidence that Ferrari has spent the last few weeks understanding the reasons for the lack of competitiveness in the last edition, despite a theoretically very agile SF-23 in slow corners and effective in traction. The early 2023 SF-23 was a terribly temperamental car, unpredictable, difficult to drive, and one that deprived Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc of the confidence necessary in order to push to the limits of the Monte Carlo walls. The complete opposite is true this time for the SF-24 car, which has significantly grown in drivability thanks to combined work on the aerodynamic map and new mechanics, celebrated in the Monaco paddock even by the team principal of the client team, Haas. In summary, Ferrari may not be the favorite for the Monaco Grand Prix, but ruling it out from the fight for victory would certainly be a mistake, one that neither Red Bull nor McLaren seem inclined to make. Ferrari is therefore not a clear favorite, but arrives in Monaco to win. This is the goal for Round 8 of the 2024 Formula One Championship, the first back-to-back European race. The series makes a stop in the Principality of Monaco, a bane and a boon for drivers. The Monte Carlo circuit is a kind of university in terms of millimeter-precise driving and concentration over the 78 laps of the race. However, qualifying represents the key moment of the weekend, as the starting position is crucial for the outcome of the race. The current generation of extra-large single-seaters has actually amplified, if possible, the difficulty of overtaking maneuvers without risking collisions or kissing the walls of the track. After the thrilling finale part of the race at the Imola circuit, there is a sense in the paddock that Red Bull and Max Verstappen are not an unattainable target for the competition. It is really a complex exercise to identify a favorite for the pole on Saturday and thus for the race the next day. For once, the statements of those in F1 are not just pre-race tactics, but stem from real uncertainty about who might come out on top among Red Bull, McLaren, and Ferrari. The MCL-38, which at the Monaco Grand Prix will celebrate its most successful driver with a livery dedicated to the unforgettable Brazilian ace Ayrton Senna, seems to be a much more significant threat than has so far been masked by Max Verstappen's super performances. Ferrari could also join the fight for success, but much will depend on their ability to make the tires work in qualifying. Despite Charles Leclerc undoubtedly being the most skilled driver on the grid in terms of single-lap speed along with Max Verstappen, he has not yet managed to secure a pole position in this early part of the season. This is due to a certain difficulty that the SF-24 often encounters in hitting the tire's operating window and maintaining it for the rest of the lap. This problem, to be honest, afflicts several F1 teams, including Red Bull itself. The reigning world champions, after a brilliant start, seem to be starting to suffer from direct competition, despite Max's 5 wins in the 7 F1 rounds held so far. The stunning Austrian car, despite the introduction of some updates on the car, has not succeeded in safely distancing itself from the increasingly fierce series of competitors. Taking a look at the current moment of the Milton Keynes team, we can say that the biggest upgrade for the blue racing cars is found between the pedals and the headrest of the RB20 and answers to the name Verstappen. The 3-time world champion has shown real caution regarding the performance of his car. According to Joss's son, the race in the Principality is not among the favorable ones on the calendar because here, more than elsewhere, the result is the fruit of perfection and also undoubtedly favorable circumstances. Max emphasized that Monaco is a very complicated track where everything must work. The tires, not getting a red flag in qualifying, and many other factors that can advantage or penalize you, prejudicing the entire weekend in favor, in this case, of Ferrari or McLaren. It's a kind of stress that the F1 world leader doesn't want to experience again, even though he describes himself as aware that the Monegasque weekend could be complicated despite Red Bull's successes in recent editions. In terms of the championship, the growth of McLaren, more than that of Scuderia Ferrari, has set off alarm bells in the Milton Keynes team. Despite the fruitful start to the season, in fact, McLaren's performance recovery is somewhat worrying with still 17 races to go. This aspect has suddenly made the final outcome of the season less certain. This is what Max Verstappen thinks. The Dutchman has admitted that it's necessary to continue developing the Red Bull package because despite McLaren and its drivers currently being far behind in the championship standings, he wouldn't be surprised if the team led by Andrea Stella suddenly started winning, quickly closing the gap. The Woking team, on the sidelines of the debut of the updates in Miami, has started to fly while the Ferrari team, the Italian F1 team, remains very confident about the new version presented at the Imola track, which still needs to unleash the potential of the updated Ferrari SF-24. At the moment in Milton Keynes, it's the papaya-colored single-seaters that are causing fear, although Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc in reality are cooking up a dish they hope will prove quite indigestible for Max Verstappen and the 2 McLarens.